So my fiance and I had been on the lookout for a kitten to accompany our 3-month-old kitten that we have already. We searched and searched until one day he said to me, "Let's look on Craigslist," so I did. We found the perfect one, but the only problem was it was 2.5 hours away from where we lived. I inquired about it at around 10:30 p.m. I know it was late, but almost immediately got a response. She sounded very nice over text and asked to see where I lived, so that we would feel settled about the kitten living with us. She also insisted on going to their house. I know, I should have just dropped it then. But at the time I thought nothing of it. So I sent them a video and we set up a time for the next day to meet up. The next day came. I wasn't going to take my fiance, but he insisted on coming with me because he wanted to be there just in case, because Craigslist is known to be sketchy. So we drove the 2.5 hours all the way there. As we were on our way, I was messaging this girl that we would get there on time, and she responded, "Great, I'll see you then." We arrived at the home, me in the driver's seat and my fiance in the passenger seat with the window down. I texted the girl and got no response. I called and no response. I ended up calling 5 times and texting in the course of an hour and got nothing back. I went up to the house and knocked on the door. Nothing. There was a car in the driveway, but no response from the number or the door. We got there at about 6:30 and waited until almost 8, but there was nothing. A neighbor came out asking what was wrong, and I said that I was here to inquire about a kitten, and she said, "A kitten? Yeah, the one that was in the ad on Craigslist." She said, "No one has kittens in this home though." I showed her the ad and she said, "Oh, I do know them. They're very sketchy people and they don't own any cats. I just helped them move their furniture yesterday." Well, on their ad it says that they have to get rid of their kittens since their new place doesn't allow any pets. That's impossible. I have a dog and so does the next door one over. I immediately found this creepy and assumed the neighbor was also in on something, since it was too creepy and I was feeling anxious. I thanked her and left along with my fiance. Literally immediately when we pulled out of the street, I got a text from the girl saying, "I'm just getting your messages now. Something must be wrong with my phone. Did you still want to see the kitten or no?" I didn't answer and we headed back home. What I don't understand is they didn't get any money from me, but they asked me to show up not knowing that I would be with my fiance. I had a bad feeling about it. What did they want from me? Okay, so here goes. In early 2014, I was around 18 and started browsing the world of Craigslist. I responded to an ad in the personal section and started texting this woman. Now being 18 and unfamiliar with how Craigslist worked, I didn't see any issue with meeting up at a hotel. I also didn't see anything wrong with her asking for donations. Again, 18 and stupid. I figured donation meant optional. Again, stupid I know, but just to be clear, she never gave me a price nor did I tell her that I had money for her. So I set up a time to meet her. I left my house to head to my GED class as usual, but walked to the hotel instead. It was pouring rain and it was warm out, so by the time I got there, I was all hot and sweaty. I knocked on the room door and she was in and she answered. Her attire should have alerted me, but let's say it again. 18 and stupid. She invited me in and I asked to use the shower quick. So I got undressed in the bathroom and hopped in the shower. She started taking off her top and I told her, "That's okay, I won't be long." So she goes and waits in the bed, watching TV. I get out of the shower and wrap a towel around my waist. I came out of the bathroom, wet as a dog, looked at her and asked if she was ready. She sprawled out on the bed and says, "Donations are due up front." At this point, all the red flags that should have gone off did as I realized the situation I was in. My face dropped as I faced the TV. I nervously told her that I didn't have any money. And she got up and started yelling at me and threw my clothes and a bag at me. I got dressed and actually apologized for wasting her time. So I leave her room and start heading back to my GED class. Before I was out of the parking lot, a guy in a green punch bug calls me over to him. I tried to ignore him and walk past until he shouts to get my attention. So I walk up to the driver's side of this guy's car and he starts talking to me. Now, this guy looked sketchy and I just figured he was the woman's pimp. So he's talking to me with his left arm up on his door and his right arm down at his side, holding a freaking pistol. At this point, I'm almost certain that I'm going to get shot. He says to me, "So why would you come here knowing that you don't have any money?" I explained as calmly as I could that I wasn't aware of the situation. This guy pulls his arm up a little to show me his gun and he says, "I have messages between you and her saying that you had money for her." Now, like I said earlier, I never told this woman that I had any money. So this guy decides to lower his gun and says to me, "You're lucky you came to one of my girls. All the girls would have stabbed you with a broken pipe. Now I see you're pretty young, so I'll let you off with a warning this time." He then motioned me to be on my way, but you bet your butt I kept looking back to make sure I wasn't about to be shot from behind. Obviously, I never met up with anybody from Craigslist ever again. I really love Craigslist. I would estimate that I met maybe 300 people for buying or selling stuff, and for the most part, everyone was nice and harmless. However, I did run into 2 creeps who made me rethink meeting strangers alone to sell stuff. FYI, I was in my early 20s and a female at the time. First guy, it's 2009 and I'm staying with my parents for the Christmas holidays in a small town in Florida. I'm going through my childhood room and cleaning out the closet, and find a giant CD holder full of maybe 100 really crappy CDs, like Nickelback, Aqua, Chumbawamba. It's the 21st century, no one uses CDs anymore, so I figured that I'll try to sell these CDs on Craigslist. I put up a listing, 100 CDs from the late 90s and early to mid 2000s, a mix of pop and rock, all for $35 or best offer. The next day, I get an email from a guy named John around 2 p.m. He said that he's in town temporarily and that he wants the CDs. He says that he could pick them up after dinner around 8 p.m. I email him back my address and number and tell him to text or call me when he's on his way. 8 p.m. comes and goes. I figured that I'd been stood up, which happens often on Craigslist, no big deal. My dad works for a liquor distribution company and would often do demonstration nights at restaurants and bars, and he would come home at the bar's closing time. This night, he gets home at around 3 a.m. I'm in college and a total night owl, so I'm still up probably eating junk food, surfing the web, and watching some horror movies. I hear a car pull up, look out the window, and I see him sitting in his car eating food. He often stops at Taco Bell on his way home and eats in his car, so Mom doesn't know that he's cheating on his diet. Maybe 10 minutes later, my dad comes in and shouts my name. "Hey, there's someone here to see you. Can you please tell me why a strange man is showing up at our house at 3 a.m. Huh? I go downstairs and my dad says some guy pulled up in the driveway and asked for me by name. I walk outside with my dad, and this guy who's in his maybe mid-30s gets out of his car. He said that he's the Craigslist guy that wanted to buy the CDs. My dad goes back into the house and I tell the guy it's really late for him to be stopping by, especially without texting first. However, since I'm awake, I go and grab the CDs. He then proceeds to drone on and on about why he's buying the CDs. He said that he's engaged to a woman that he loves very much and all he wants to do is make her happy. He said that last week, someone broke into her car and stole all of her CDs. She was really upset and he wanted to make it up for her. He looked on Craigslist and found my listing and was really excited because I had a bunch of the CDs that she used to have. The weird thing is, I didn't list any of the artists or bands because I was lazy, but I didn't think about that at the time. Anyway, he said that he was getting it for her as a Christmas surprise. He said he was staying with his future in-laws somewhere nearby, and that their family barbecue ran really late. which is why he never made it to 8 p.m. By this point, I've lost interest and say something along the lines of, "That's sweet, next time you should probably call or text the Craigslist instead of just showing up." I hand in the CDs, he hands me the cash, and I go back inside. 3 days later, I start getting messages from an unknown number. "Hey, I don't know my way around this town. Care to be a tour guide? I could really use a massage. Where can I get a good one in this town? You're Asian, do you do it? Would you take $40 an hour for a 1-hour massage? Happy ending." Me finally, who the heck is this? "Oh, sorry, I bought the CDs from you the other day." I didn't respond. I show my friends that night and we laugh it off. And then the next day, I get more messages. "I still have your address. I'm at the bank near your neighborhood. I got that $40. Only 3 minutes away. Are you home? Stop ignoring me. I'm almost there." I immediately ran downstairs to tell my dad and mom. It was nighttime, so we shut off all the lights outside and inside my house. My mom, little brother, and I went in my parents' room in the back of the house. My dad hid behind the curtains of the front bay window with a shovel in his hand. A few minutes later, I heard him run down the front hallway, fling the front door open and run outside. I heard some faint shouting, so we all walked out of the bathroom. By that time, my dad came back in with his shovel, his face red and his hair all disheveled. Apparently, the guy came driving down our street really slowly. My dad had recognized the car and went running outside with a shovel, yelling obscenities at the guy. The guy peeled off and never came back or texted me again. The second guy. I was moving from Florida to DC and was going to load up my car as much as I could with some stuff. However, I lived on the 3rd floor plus a bit of a walk from my assigned parking spot, so I figured that I could use some help. I posted an ad on Craigslist. I said I was looking for someone to help me load some heavy items, like a TV, a desk, etc., into my car. Less than an hour's worth of work and I would pay $45 or whatever. I give the very first responder my number and address and he shows up. He was probably 5'8" and 350, and the sweat and smell coming off this guy in the Florida heat was nauseating, but I didn't care as long as he did the job right. While he was carting away the heavy stuff, I was loading lighter things. Whenever I would go upstairs to grab another load, he would hurry after me so he could walk up the stairs behind me. I had the door propped open so he didn't have to worry about me needing to unlock the door for him or anything. And then he would follow me up the stairs and he would make these weird grunting noises, but I assumed it was because he was out of shape. Eventually, everything's loaded properly, save for some sweat smears on my stuff. I pay him and he drives off. I go back in my place to finish loading and cleaning. I go out maybe 45 minutes later to put out another load into my car, and I see his truck in the back parked across the street from mine. He's sitting in the driver's seat looking at me. When he sees me notice him, he looks away. I walk over to his window and knock. He rolls it down and I ask if he needs any help or if he was lost. I was really confused as to why he had come back, and I knew that he didn't live near me. He didn't say anything, just rolled his window back up and drove off. Whatever. Of course, 5 minutes later, my phone starts blowing up. I don't recognize the number, so I don't answer the calls. And then the text messages start rolling in. "What are you up to tonight? I can come back over." I get this sinking feeling it's the Craigslist guy again. He had never called me about the job when I gave him my number, so I didn't know what his number was. And then I realized he was looking at my dress the whole time when I was walking up the stairs. I immediately felt like a total idiot for wearing a dress that day. He then started dialing my number over and over again. I didn't know how to do the block number thing through Sprint, so I just turned my phone off. Later, I was with my guy friend grabbing a bite to eat and turning my phone back on. And I got another text from the guy saying something that I probably shouldn't say on here. I showed the text to my friend and I told him the story. The Craigslist creep then proceeds to start blowing up my phone again. So my friend answers and tells him to stop trying to contact me. I moved away the next day, so I never had to worry about him randomly showing up in his truck again. Since then, I bought and sold stuff on Craigslist, but I always make sure people meet me at a public address. This happened 5 years ago today, marking this experience's 5th anniversary. At the time, I was a shy, religious, sheltered college kid whose social interactions are very dependent on school-related activities. Today, I'm still pretty shy and barely have any social interaction nowadays, but I digress. Being the religious person that I was then, I had requested that my family and I attend Mass on the last Sunday of the year. Sunday came and Mom was the only one willing to accompany me. We attended the last Mass of the day, which is around 6 or 7 in the evening, because it was too hot in the afternoon, and I could not be bothered to wake up early for the morning Mass. When we had arrived, the Mass had already started and all the pews were occupied, so we stood by the very back of the church. The Mass itself was pretty average, except for a lady in the back of the church who fainted in the middle of the priest's homily. I didn't feel anything was wrong during the whole Mass. Usually after the Mass, when the priest would be standing before the altar, people would approach him to receive his blessing. I had planned to do that, meaning I had to cross the whole length of the church to get to the priest. As I walked in the aisle, I suddenly felt like I was being followed. In the years after this incident, I felt what being followed by friends trying to catch up on me feels like, and that did not match what felt when I was walking down the aisle. I was hoping that my instincts were wrong, but I was quickly disproved when a man came up to my left side. He was taller than I was. I'm 5'2" and he was around 5'7". I couldn't pinpoint his age, but I can guess he was older than I was, maybe early 20s. I didn't know who this person was and I didn't know what he wanted from me. He then started asking me personal questions like my name, my age, and where I lived. I knew that I was lacking in social skills, but I know following a person around at church at night and flooding them with personal questions isn't a great way to make friends. At this point, I was uncomfortable. I was still far from the priest, but was too polite to just simply ignore him. I replied to his questions, but all were with false or vague information. I gave a fake name, a different age, stuff like that. When I did approach the priest, I tried to get his attention to maybe get the guy to leave me alone. But the priest looked like he didn't even care whose forehead his knuckles were touching at the time. Feeling betrayed, I turned to look at the other people nearby, but everyone else had their attention on their own business. I couldn't really blame them for that. My last resort was, of course, my mother. I turned around and speed walked my way to the back of the church. But as I neared the spot Mom and I stayed earlier, she wasn't there anymore. I panicked and started looking around frantically. The guy was still following me and now asking me where I go to school. I didn't want to talk to him anymore, and I didn't want him near me anymore. In my panic, searching for my mother, I caught a glimpse of her form sitting at one of the pews at the back. I darted straight to her and squeezed my words out. With no pause, that I was being followed and we needed to book it out of the church. Mom, understandably surprised, looked at me, then at the guy who was still by my side and then back at me. She then stood up, took my hand, and walked out of the church with me. By the time that we got to the car, my heart was racing and I was shaking a little. Being the nice person that I was, I tried to rationalize that maybe the guy really had good intentions. My mom would tell me the guy was probably just awkward or socially inept, but everyone else who I'd shared the story with thought otherwise. For a time, I wouldn't go near that area without my brother, and I pretty much lost my dedication to my faith over time because of this experience. So, to the creepy guy who made me feel unsafe in the house of God, let's not meet.